The woman everyone called foolish for bringing a homeless stranger into her home was about to discover something nobody in that neighborhood could have imagined. The man sleeping on the roadside, holding out a battered bowl and asking strangers for help, was not who he appeared to be, and the beautiful woman who chose to see a human being instead of a beggar was about to become the most important person in his world. Her name was Amara. She had seen the man several times before, always sitting quietly near the same busy road. People passed him without looking. Some gave him a few coins, while others laughed, whispered, or simply crossed to the other side. But one afternoon, something was different. The man looked exhausted. Amara stopped and asked if he had eaten today, and when he slowly looked up and said no, she bought him food. She could have handed it to him and walked away like everyone else, but instead, she sat beside him and asked what had happened to him. The man lowered his eyes and replied that sometimes life changes faster than a person can prepare for. His name was Daniel. Amara knew nothing about him, where he came from, what he had lost, or why he had ended up on the street. But she noticed something strange, despite his clothes, his tired face, and his circumstances. He spoke with unusual calmness, thanked everyone who helped him, never insulted those who ignored him, and immediately returned a bag a child accidentally dropped beside him. Amara saw something others refused to see: character. That evening, heavy rain began falling, and Amara found Daniel still outside when she told him he couldn't stay there tonight. He shook his head and said he would be fine, but she insisted he was coming with her. Daniel stared at her and pointed out that she didn't even know him, to which she replied that while true, she knew he was human. Those 6 words changed everything as she took him home. Her house wasn't luxurious. It was small, clean, and comfortable. She gave him a towel, clean clothes, and something warm to eat. Daniel stood in the doorway as if he was afraid to step inside, saying he didn't want to make her home dirty, but Amara reassured him that he was not dirt, causing Daniel to smile for the first time in months. However, Amara didn't know that while she was preparing a meal for him, someone else was watching everything from a distance. A black vehicle had stopped across the street with a man in an expensive suit inside, who watched Daniel enter Amara's home and quietly remarked that she had really taken him in. When the driver asked if they should intervene, the man said no and instructed him to continue the test. Daniel wasn't actually a homeless man. He was David Chukwu, founder and chairman of one of the country's largest private investment groups, worth more money than most people could imagine. For months, David had been conducting a personal experiment to answer something wealth never could. If people believed he had nothing, would they still treat him like a human being? He had already seen enough cruelty to understand how quickly society changes its attitude toward poverty. People who once smiled at him avoided his eyes. Former acquaintances pretended not to recognize him. Some mocked him, and others recorded him for entertainment. But then there was Amara, who didn't ask what she could gain, who he knew, or whether he could help her, but simply helped him. David wanted to know how far that kindness went. Days passed, and Amara never complained about having Daniel in her home. She helped him find temporary work, bought him better clothes, took him to a clinic when he became sick, and defended him when people in the neighborhood began gossiping. When a neighbor asked why she was bringing a homeless man into her house, Amara calmly answered that being poor doesn't make someone worthless, a sentence that reached David more deeply than she could know. But then the pressure began when Amara's family discovered she had been helping Daniel. Her mother was furious, warning her that she was destroying her future and stating that a good man pays bills. Amara defended him, saying he would rebuild his life and that she didn't need to know what he would become, only how he treated people today. That was the moment David realized he wasn't testing kindness anymore, he was falling in love. Still, he kept his identity secret. One evening, Amara found an envelope with a large amount of money in Daniel's room and immediately confronted him. Daniel froze and said he couldn't explain, but promised he hadn't stolen anything. Amara studied his face, placed the envelope back on the table, and told him to explain whatever he was hiding when he was ready. She could have called the police or thrown him out, but instead, she gave him another chance, a decision that would soon change her life. Daniel remained silent for several seconds, staring at the envelope as if it contained more than just money. Finally, he admitted that the cash belonged to him, but he still refused to explain where it had come from. Amara could see the fear in his eyes, and that frightened her more than the money itself. She asked him directly if someone was threatening him. But Daniel only shook his head and told her that the less she knew, the safer she would be. Before she could ask another question, his phone suddenly rang. Daniel looked at the screen and his entire expression changed. He quickly rejected the call, but moments later, another message appeared. Amara noticed the name displayed on the screen before Daniel turned it away. It was someone she had never heard of, yet Daniel seemed terrified that this person had found him. That night, Amara barely slept. Questions kept racing through her mind. Why would a homeless man have so much money? Why was someone searching for him? And why did Daniel seem more concerned about protecting her than protecting himself? The following morning, she woke to find Daniel already gone. His small room was empty, but on the table beside the envelope was a folded piece of paper with her name written on it. Amara opened it with trembling hands and read a message that made her heart stop. If anyone asks about me, tell them you don't know where I am. She immediately looked toward the window and noticed a black luxury car parked across the street. A man in an expensive suit stepped out, looked directly toward her house, and slowly began walking toward the front door. The next morning, a convoy of luxury vehicles arrived outside Amara's neighborhood, and people in formal suits stepped out, causing everyone to stare. A senior executive walked toward the house and asked Amara's mother if this was Amara's home. Her mother rushed outside and asked who they were, and when told they were there for Chairman David Chukwu, she laughed and said they had the wrong house. But the executive smiled and affirmed it was exactly the right house. Then, the door opened, and Daniel stepped outside not in his old clothes, but dressed in an elegant suit with a completely different posture. The crowd went silent as Amara stared at him in disbelief. He walked toward her, revealed his real name was David Chukwu, chairman of Chukwu Global Holdings. Her mother looked stunned, as the same man she had called a useless beggar was now standing before her surrounded by executives, security personnel, and luxury vehicles. David wasn't interested in impressing anyone. He turned toward Amara and explained that he didn't come to embarrass her family, but because he needed to know whether there was still kindness in a world where money controls almost everything. He explained the experiment, sharing how he had spent weeks living as a homeless man, watching people insult, ignore, mock, and humiliate him. While Amara gave him food, shelter, and defense without ever asking for anything in return, he looked into her eyes and noted that she saw him when everyone else saw his circumstances. Overwhelmed, Amara pointed out that he had lied to her. David admitted it, apologized, and acknowledged she was right when she stated she didn't care about his money and that he should have trusted her. Reaching into his pocket, he promised that from that moment forward, there would be no secrets between them. When Amara silently asked why he chose her, David smiled and said it was because when she thought he was nothing, she treated him like he was everything. David didn't simply reward Amara with money. He decided to change the lives of everyone who had shown genuine kindness during his experiment by creating a foundation to provide education, small business funding, housing assistance, and emergency support. Whether someone gave food, offered a coat, or simply sat and listened, David believed the heart behind those small gifts was enormous. Meanwhile, the people who had mocked him began trying to apologize, suddenly wanting to be friends or offering expensive gifts, but David refused most of them, telling them not to pretend they discovered his worth just because they discovered his wealth. Those words spread throughout the community, and Amara understood that while money could buy comfort, houses, cars, and opportunities, it could never manufacture genuine character, which appears when there is nothing to gain. Months later, David and Amara stood together at their wedding, surrounded by wealthy executives, ordinary neighbors, and even people who had once laughed at him by the road. David looked at Amara, took her hand, and shared that while he thought he was searching for good people, he instead found the woman he wanted to spend the rest of his life with. Amara smiled through tears, expressing that she loved the man she met before she knew the man he became, and David replied that that was exactly why he chose her. Sometimes, life hides the greatest blessings behind the most ordinary faces. The person everyone ignores may be carrying a story nobody knows. The person everyone laughs at may be fighting a battle nobody can see, and the person who seems to have nothing may possess a good heart, which is far more valuable than wealth. Before judging someone by their clothes, home, job, or bank account, remember that you may be looking at their circumstances, but not their worth. Perhaps the greatest twist of all is that one day, the person treated like nothing may be the very person who has the power to change everything.